What's a red flag when looking for a job? High staff turnover. I remember a specific red flag from when I was interviewing senior year of college. Went to the initial interview, hit it off with the guy right away. He was the supervisor and the type of guy I could see myself being happy to work for. Went to their office for a second interview. Everything went great. Met the rest of the team. They all seemed like nice people. Plenty of other young folks just starting out who seemed cool. Just all around a nice place to work. They were a small division of a large insurance company. Great benefits and corporate resources, but plenty of autonomy to do the kind of specialized work my degree was for. It was also local. I was basically debating between this and one other job which was out of state, so location was a big plus on their side. About a week goes by, and I get another email. The supervisor tells me that they're all sold on offering me the job, but they need me to come in again. Apparently, that week they'd been bought out from their parent company by a consulting firm whose entire business was our specialty. This firm was fairly notorious in our industry. They had a reputation for snatching up half our graduating class every year, burning them out with unrealistic benchmarks and expectations, losing almost all of them to better jobs, and doing it all over again the next year. They were also expanding at an alarming rate and gobbling up a lot of smaller firms in the process. Some which had been around forever and had great reputations in the industry. Word was that they weren't run by people with any experience in our field. It was some Wall Street finance guys who ran it purely to increase profit and shareholder value. Very little concern for quality of work or quality of life for their employees. I went in for this third interview, and it was a completely different vibe. There was a new guy from the firm making the acquisition who I did not vibe with at all. He really did not seem like the type of person I wanted to work for. They also suddenly wanted me to relocate. They did a weird dance of bragging that I could go anywhere because of their nationwide footprint, but also heavily implied that they were gonna make me go to Atlanta. It was weird. I didn't like any of what I was hearing, and I didn't really hide my skepticism during the interview. Slept on it for a few days and made the call to take the other offer I had. That was a relocation too, but it was much closer than Atlanta, and the job itself was much more of a unique opportunity. Lower pay, but better benefits/security. I'm still at that job now, almost 4 years later. Never heard a word from the other guys since that third interview. I think I really would have liked working for that original firm pre-acquisition. It's wild how quickly that dynamic completely shifted. I'm just glad it happened before I signed on to work there. Master's degree preferred for an entry-level job. If the job description has about 20 items, of which one is sales, your job is going to be sales. We work hard and play hard. It actually means all work, and for sure no play. Long personality quizzes during the application. They're a huge red flag that the manager is incompetent. If the office is a shithole/bathrooms are dirty ***, TL, doctor, cheap ass owner, ***. This is kind of an odd one, but here is what happened to me. I left a decent size, 400 employee, successful company because my career path was dead-ended. I had 2 positions above me. One was my boss, who was not going to retire for 20 years, and the VP, who was above him, and also not going anywhere for 10 years or more. Took a job at a much smaller company, 70 employees, but it had a ton of growth potential. It was a small company on the verge of blowing up and getting big. I didn't pay a ton of attention to my surroundings, because I was too excited about more money, growth, etc. The offices were a dump and the bathrooms were disgusting. There were 2 reasons for this. First, the company was small and growing and somewhat cash poor. Second, the owner was cheap as fuck. In my time there, he would frequently make comments like offices don't make me money and bathrooms don't make me money. Which, on the surface, is true. However, people don't like working a dump. I had a job in it, and we would end up cleaning the bathrooms on a rotation. I'm not above scrubbing a toilet, but no one told me, when I was hired, that I'd have to wipe up piss. I might have reconsidered taking that job. Over the next couple of years, the company did grow, and they did hire a cleaning company and they did invest in the offices, but the first 12 months or so were not entirely what I expected. Especially coming from a company that prided itself on nice, clean, modern facilities. I will say this though, the owner's cheap mentality was a continual roadblock for me in my time there. I eventually became director of operations, and it was a constant challenge to deal his step over a dollar to pick up a dime methods. Here are some examples of his idiocy. Only the owner, the VP, and the financial guy were allowed to have company credit cards. I was a director of operations with 65 employees under me, and I had to get petty cash from accounting, or use my own credit card, and get reimbursed for any events/spending/meals Most people were not allowed to book their own flights. It wasn't until later on that I was able to book my own flights. The entire purchasing department and none of the sales force were allowed to book their own flights. The owner did it, and if he could save $60 by adding to layovers or making your flight a day, he would do it. Never mind the lost productivity and what that costs. We saved $60 on your ticket kept an opiate addict around because he was a good welder and carpenter and would fix/build anything the owner wanted on the weekend for $60, a pack of smokes, and a case of beer. The addict regularly destroyed equipment, stole, lied, and worked whatever hours he wanted. When my predecessor tried to fire him, the owner overruled, and after that the addict could basically do whatever he wanted because there were clearly no repercussions. I did eventually fire this guy, and I still have the voicemail saved where he called up and begged for his job back after he had threatened violence against me and vandalism against my property we had a plow truck that was in need of a wiring harness. The addict employee mentioned above had done something while borrowing the truck with the owner's permission and the truck caught on fire. The truck was an older V30 Chevy truck, but it was in decent shape and worked well. I ordered a wiring harness from Painless and figured I'd install it on a weekend and get the truck working again for $600. The owner traded that truck and $5,000 for a 2002 F255.4 XL regular cab with 275,000 miles on it. The Super Duty frame and suspension were completely rotten and the truck needed a rear end, brakes, brake lines, and fuel lines in the first year. I'm sure the guy that made that trade laughed all the way to the bank, coming away with $5K and a clean square-bodied Chevy 1-ton that had an SM465, NP205, 14-bolt, Dana 60, and only needed a wiring harness to be back on the road I wasn't allowed to hire a lawn care company to do the mowing, so we had to have employees do it. The owner bought a used $400 riding mower that had 4 flat tires, no belts, and no battery from you guessed it the addict guy. I was not allowed to have a company credit card, but I did have a company Lowe's card, so I bought a cheap push mower over there, and we used that to mow until years later, when I was allowed to hire a mowing company. Test task that looks like real work they need to be done. Earning potential is stressed over current salary. When the interviewer has been with the company for less than a year. Couple of things open interviews***. Admittedly I've fallen for this a few times, but I was young and stupid. It's clear they have a high turnover, so they are trying to secure as many people as they can. Most of the time these open interview jobs don't have salaries, just commission ***refusal or reluctancy to share details over the phone. This is what usually ends up in you turning up to an open interview. If they withhold information about the role, what you'll be doing etc., that's a huge red flag. They just want to get you in the door for an interview, to pressure you into joining. Job description: you will be in charge of the online marketing. Because of that, we expect that you will also be the web developer, photoshopper, community manager, coffee maker and dick sucker. That kind of crap will tell you if that business understands the role they are looking to fill, or are just expecting some kind of magical entity that will do everything online related by himself. I think it's a weird question to ask a prospective employer, but an important one. What are your company values? It's kinda like asking on a first date your date's life philosophy. But man, it becomes evident when a company has no values. And if you don't have anything to strive for other than a dollar, your employees won't last. When the only people there have been with the company for ages and you're the only new guy, that probably means you're just looking at an old boys club and they are absolute dicks to new employees and drive them away. Looking for rock stars in the job description, unless of course the posting is in fact for a position to be a rock star. We are a family here, which means this is how they try to make up for the shitty pay and long hours. Family owned and operated. The family members will not be held to the same standards as you. Spelling mistakes in the post. In the 90s, when restaurant job posts were in newspapers, I made sure to avoid those that seemed to have an annual subscription to the help wanted section. If they are always hiring, people are always leaving. I can get that with sales and marketing, but if you are burning through cooks and dishwashers every week, something must be amiss with management. When looking at compensation figures, bear in mind that up to X includes the number 0. When you see a black leather couch in an empty room, asking for all your project details before even interviewing. I got a call from a Subway I applied to telling me my interview was in 10 minutes. That was the first I heard from them after submitting my application. They mention internship. This was a red flag I had during an interview process once. I was doing a phone interview for an IT position and the person I was interviewing with basically changed the details of the job during the interview. Instead of the first shift hours the position promised, he immediately went into saying it would be 6+ months before the opportunity for first shift would even be a possibility. Also, he was begin to asking how dedicated I was to jobs. The idea of weekend shifts, again, not in the original description, kept coming up, and how everyone had to be a team player and help out on weekends when needed. The kicker was when he started talking about how many hours he worked. He was bragging that he was up at 6 AM every day working, then he'd go into the office for the day, come home to see his family for dinner, and get right back to work until 10 to 11 PM every night. I had never been turned off from a job faster in my life. He asked me to think things over, and he'd send me some paperwork via email. Needless to say, I called him the next morning and declined the job. It was the worst interview process I'd ever been in. If the job asks for money to begin, we'll hide it this behind we just need $90 for the piss test and $180 for the marketing training. Definitely not talking from my scammed ass's personal experience. Employed immediately. It can mean that the job sucks and nobody wants it. Or it can mean that you are exactly what they are looking for. You walk in and none of the employees greet you, if not outright ignore you. You realize it's a very cliquey place. Fuck office politics. Hiring lots of people on the same position, everyone who calls gets a job, often means the job is either bullshit or they're setting you all up to compete for the actual job. High staff turnover rates. I also walk around, if possible, and ask employees what they think working there. I can think of a few specific examples. When I was younger, I was in between my dad's house and my eventually wife, and then ex-wife's parents' house, kind of living both places, but I was transitioning to move in with her family. We lived about 50 minutes apart. She stayed with me on occasion at my dad's too. This all becomes relevant. I applied at the McDonald's in her town just trying to do anything. Well, I got a call one morning at 7 a.m. MCD manager says interview in 25 minutes. We were at my dad's and that call woke me up. So I told him, look, I'm almost an hour away, there's no way I make that. He said, then I guess you don't want the job that badly. Today me would have told him to jog off, but back then me jumped in the shower and together me and my ex-lady sped 120 through country roads and somehow managed to make it just in time. I gave my best damn interview. He never called me back. A job for online Apple tech support through a third party working from home. In the interview they told me they'd send me a Mac to work from and a phone to use. I was a little smarter than me in example A, so I had questions. My main red flag popped when she said you're responsible for the equipment and the cost of any repairs if it breaks. Okay, makes sense. But I asked, are these new devices? She danced around the question, but I was persistent. Finally she said no, they're refurbished. So my next question was, so, if you send this Mac to me, and day 2 it stops working, because of some non-damage issue, do I still have to pay the repair? Yeah, apparently I would, and these suckers are not cheap. After that she said, I don't know if this job is right for you, because I ask strong questions to see if I could get fucked over by you guys. Yeah, maybe not TL. Dr. McManager on a power trip didn't even call me back after I went double the speed limit to make his outrageous time demand. And sketchy work from home job wanted to give me possibly janky hardware and then charge me if it stopped working, got defensive when I asked if that was really the case. Always ask them why the person you are replacing left the job. The way they answer this could be a red flag. Requires 10 years experience, 2 master's degrees. Start 8.50 hours. Arrived for an interview not too long ago. Showed up 15 minutes early and had all my certs to prove training. Waited over 20 minutes before the secretary led me to a conference room. Waited another 40 minutes and got fed up. Quality manager walked in as I was getting up to leave. He was very offended when I told him he had wasted my time and I would never accept a position after being left to wait almost an hour while having an appointment. I interviewed for a company that had a recruiter after me pretty hard. The company was just moving into my market and the reviews on Glassdoor definitely mentioned people being frustrated with the bro culture. All of my interviews were over FaceTime with the managers showing up in their pajamas from home and admitting that, since the company is still growing, the workload was pretty much 7 days a week until you got your new team hired and running. It just wasn't very professional and it was obvious they didn't have structure or care about people's time. I also don't trust companies that brag about things like Nerf gun fights around the office and constant happy hour events. Those perks are fun, but it's clear when that's all they talk about in the job posting that they are trying to distract you from other issues. I need to see that your company culture is enriching and creates success, not free lunches. Manager who doesn't really interview you, or who doesn't take the interview seriously. They are on their phone the whole time, don't ask any questions, are too casual. If they ask you to pay for training, that's usually a red flag that it's a MLM or pyramid scheme. If they ask you to buy stuff on commission and then it's your job to resell it, big ol' red flag. I've had job interviews where the whole company gave me a weird vibe. Lots of psychology questions like, do you like to be in control? While sitting in an office building with zero privacy, all of the offices had glass walls, so everyone could see everyone else. Needless to say, I didn't accept their offer. Unfortunately, I have worked for a couple of places that hired roughly 75 plus people 3 times per week at several locations, just to keep up with turnover. An employer who treats you like they are doing you a favor. With good servant leadership, it should be the other way around. An unclear job description, or a job description that includes too many duties. Not being offered the opportunity to see the working areas or talk to people who would be your peers. Just generally trying to feel out whether or not they have things under control or not. I don't want to walk into a shit show. Making jokes about overtime and crunch time. Guaranteed it's going to be nights and weekends are optional, but not actually optional, place. Really small places. My last 2 jobs have been tiny. Fewer than 10, and once I get out of this second one I'll never work at such a small place again. You are absolutely at the mercy of the people/personalities around you. I can pretty much guarantee one of them will be someone with a borderline personality disorder who has a baffling amount of control, and you've got zero buffer from anyone. When they can't return a call or keep you updated about your onboarding. When they tell you name a suitable price, then you choose a price and they cut a piece of it. They don't care for you. I was once called to arrange an interview for a job in the medical field, and the woman wanted me to show up for the interview without telling me what company it was, what was the job description, etc. She told me we'll discuss during the interview and asked me to be in an address at a specific time 2 days later. It seemed way sketchy, and I had already a second interview somewhere and pretty sure I would get the job, so I cancelled this thing. To this day I wonder what that was about. When they say you could be earning 6 figures in less than a year. Bullshit job descriptions that are so vague they could be anything. If you ask them what the pay is, and they start off with what you could be making after so much time and they start rambling about the raise process, run the other way. When they tell you what you could earn instead of what you will earn. When they ask for way too much knowledge and experience for a job where you don't need that much knowledge and experience. It stuns me that people in the UK don't look at publicly available data on companies' house tax returns, incoming/outgoings, etc. So many colleagues have joined organizations that look on paper pretty shaky and turned out to be just that. British friends, check company's house. If you see something that looks bad, ask at your job interview. It'll make you look smart too. If they don't want to pay you the full value of your labor, you need to get out of there. Vague job description/title. Scene 1 just today titled "Bank support worker." It's literally wiping us in an old folks home for £6/HR. When the company is very inefficient during the hiring process, it's time to back away. People who don't listen to you when you say life isn't free. I'm looking for a job at the moment. I'd like to work with kids or people with special needs, to have a reference, to enhance my chances at getting in the school I want, a school to become specialized educator for people with special needs. So I contacted a lot of associations related to handicap. My mail clearly states that I'm looking for a paid internship or job to pay the bills and fill the fridge while I wait for next year to try and get in that school. I've gotten many answers saying sorry, we only work with volunteer interns that don't get a salary, but good luck for the following. Blah blah, I'm cool with that. They're usually non-profit and I understand. And then I've gotten a surprisingly high amount of we don't pay people, but come work for us. And when I answered that I need money for food, they tell me that I should be grateful that they offered me an internship and just do what they tell me, etc. Okay, B backslash asterisk backslash asterisk backslash asterisk backslash asterisk. Sure, I'll starve. Nice. When you see an employee tearing off their shirt and throwing it to the floor exclaiming how they're sick and tired of this shit. For me, when they do open interviews, lol. My last interview, the guy started with talking about how there is no room for advancement and that from my CV I was defiantly more experienced with him. He was also wearing a cap backwards. Bad vibe. If they are looking for a large number of people to fill multiple positions, typically means that something happened to make a lot of people quit, or means that company has a high turnover rate. Group interviews. Places who always say they're hiring and always taking applications, but you never actually see anyone new being trained or anything. It means people are quitting constantly and management isn't hiring new people, so they are critically understaffed on top of poorly managed. You get talked a lot about the money you're going to make and how fancy the place is, but very little about the job itself. If you are expected to work right off without sufficient training, it reflects poorly on the company's management and likely also means that they don't care about the employees. This is the biggest red flag of them all. Hey sweaty, I have an amazing business opportunity for you. How would you like to be your own boss, the CEO of your own company, and become a millionaire just from working on your... It's so easy. All you have to do is trick other people into joining your team and they will do all the work for you while you take most of their profits. So what do you say? Insert victim's name here. Wanna join my team? It's only $499.99 for a starter pack. You gotta spend to make. I turned down a second interview for a position in which the interviewer said something to the effect of, if your boss emails you on a Friday night, you don't have to respond, but you know how that looks. Made it pretty clear that they expect work to be your first priority. How quickly they want you to start, and a seemingly easy interview process. It means they're desperate and probably have high turnover for a reason. If it's too easy to get hired, that almost always means that it's a job with a high turnover rate. When they should talk previous employees, they're going to do it to you. Hiring process. If they bring me Bavki in to hire me, I know something isn't right. I walked into a supermarket years ago for an interview. I wanted part-time work while I studied, but the staff all looked so miserable. Was like a horror movie. Sad staff, crying kids, blinking ceiling lights. So I didn't put any effort into the interview and didn't get the job, of course. Promotions or a raise in a very short time, under a month for example, screams desperation on. Especially in the restaurant biz. No phone interview. When you hear they are constantly hiring people for the same position. I saw a job posting last week in which one of the requirements was to keep your desk tidy. If they are willing to put that in the ad, the office is run by control freaks. Stay away. If the job posting has been up for a long time, The company is either having a hard time filling the job, or they are too disorganized to take it down after they filled it. Lack of corporation credibility, high staff turnover, high number of lawsuits faced, many criminal complaints issued, rate of profitability against wages/salaries, etc. We offer flexible hours, means that you will never have a set, week-to-week schedule, you will never be able to make plans more than a week in advance, and you will probably get stuck with turnaround shifts, closing then opening. When they avoid the topic of set schedules or specific hours. Likewise, job postings that advertise make your own hours. That 100% means working 72 hours a week for a salary barely worth 35. Initially unpaid, but will result in full-time offer upon completion of ZIS. In the interview, ask if this is a new position or an opening for an existing one. If it's an opening for an existing position, ask if your potential predecessor was promoted, fired or quit. Ask the number of hours typically worked in a week by others in your position if it's salaried. Ask how the quality of your performance will be measured and evaluated. Ask for the number of peers in the same job and how their performance matches with the expectation. If you can't find red flags with the answers to these questions, then you should be doing the only job you'd be qualified to do, nothing. A communist flag. The salary, boss and many other. When you get an interview offer from a company you haven't actually applied to, and they are very vague about what the job actually is, 99.9% of the time it's an MLM who found your resume on a job search site. Also, any job that asks for any kind of application fee. If the job asks you to recommend people for job, 80% of the time is a pyramid scheme. Putting professional cheese eater on your resume. Coffee runs. FFS people are so lazy and picky. When they take you in a van and take it to the other side of town for a work even though you thought it was just going to be an interview, then you spend the next 8 hours trying to sell newspapers to people who will pretend not to speak English and be told you get paid only when you make a sale. So you go home and never go back to that shit job ever again. When you ask someone in legal what kind of work has been keeping them busy lately, and they reply sexual harassment. Seeming overly eager to get you in and working. Asking you to do a trial before any kind of interview. Just a general sense of disorganization and lack of communication. Especially if the company has just recently changed owners. I saw all of these and still took the job, quit 3 weeks later. Any job that requires an upfront cost. This is a telltale sign that you are getting wrapped up into a MLM pyramid scheme. When the mucky mucks compare staff to family. That is never a good sign. Used to work at Walmart, and every year employees get to rate the store at a meeting headed up by the Grams. Last year I was there, GM had the audacity to compare the staff to family because most people spend more time here than with their actual families. Mildly horrifying. I did a ton of interviews in the last year and had many red flag experiences. 1. Audition type interviews. Was asked to come in for an interview about 40 minutes away for an insurance underwriter position. Walked into a huge room of about 20 people. They showed us a video about the company to hype it up about salaries and such, then proceeded to bring in several employees who talked about how much they loved it there and the amount of money they bring in. The only interaction from us was asking what each of us took away from the experience. They ended up calling me back for follow-up interview several times, saying that they were very impressed by me. Knew way after hearing that there was an upfront cost and largely commission based. Basically set up like a pyramid scheme where you sold insurance to people in their homes. Sad part is that many of the people there were all about it and excited to be there too. Next one, I had an initial interview scheduled for 9 AM that lasted about 10 minutes. They had me wait in the lobby and do my second interview immediately after in a local coffee shop with a very young girl who had just graduated college. I was 26 at the time, so they probably assumed a younger person would get me in the door. The girl was super nice and we hit it off, but I could tell she was hyping up the position a lot too. Went back and straight into my third interview, where they went on and on about how much she liked me and wanted me on the team. Fast forward to a few days later, I get a call from the same recruiter that initially got me the interview saying that my resume was a good fit and they wanted me for an interview. I explained that I had gone through 3 interviews a few days ago and the whole process. She was like, "Alright, you're that, my name. Well, we actually wanted to offer you the job." Declined that job and completely changed my job search after that. It's common in my industry for you to be interviewed separately by 3 or 4 different people. They will typically all be people that you will be working with or for instance, the hiring manager and 2 teammates. I've taken to asking each of them to describe what they see as the day-to-day duties and priorities of the role. If they don't align, it's a warning sign that no one knows exactly what they are hiring for. The interviewer. Do they sound like a leader? Do they know what they want? Do they know where they are going? Do they know how your new role will help them get there? Or are they waffling? When the principal reason for letting someone go was simply, they just didn't fit in here. When you ask a serious question about the job and people laugh at you during the interview. Fucking run. That, and when you see a bunch of wedge-cut Karens working in the office. That's a telltale sign for a toxic work environment. Look at the cars in the parking lot. If the cars are relatively new and well maintained, it usually means the pay is decent or good. When the interview is held on a couch. Poor healthcare benefits. I was called about an interview recently and then noticed that the person doing all the calling and interviewing was the CEO. If the CEO is doing all that crap, they're really struggling for people. Soon after I learned you essentially can't take any time off due to the low number of employees. Not even federal holidays like Christmas, Thanksgiving, etc.